Hello friends, this video is for Thursday of Holy Week, and in today's story we will learn about what happens on the last night that Jesus was here on earth. And the first part of our story is called Jesus Washes Everyone's Feet. There's some great pictures of feet and Jesus washing them. He's in purple again, can you see him? After the great entry into Jerusalem, after the wonderful anointing with the sweet-smelling oil, Jesus knew that the time of his suffering had come. He knew the days ahead would be terrible for his mother and for his friends who loved him. This is the story of what Jesus did to show them how much he loved them. Jesus and his friends were at supper. All at once he got up from the table and he wrapped a towel around his waist, sort of like a servant would do. The disciples must have wondered why their master was dressing up as a servant. Then Jesus took a bowl and filled it with water. He went to each person there, one by one. In front of each person, he put down the bowl of water. Then he knelt and bent over and began to wash and dry their feet. Now these feet must have been very smelly. People in those days wore sandals and walked long ways on dirt roads. It was a kind and gracious thing to wash the tired, dirty feet of one's guests. But it was not something that the host or the hostess would ever do. Washing feet was unpleasant work, and it was the servant's work. So when Jesus came to Simon Peter, the disciple stopped him. "Lord," he said, "are you going to wash my feet?" He did not like what he was seeing. Jesus said, "At the moment, you do not understand what I am doing, but later you will understand." Simon Peter said, "No, Lord, you will never wash my feet." Jesus answered him, saying, "Simon Peter, if I do not wash your feet, you cannot be my companion. You will have no part in me." This alarmed Simon Peter, who loved Jesus very much. And he said, "Lord, then wash my feet and my hands and my head as well." When Jesus finished washing everyone's feet, he sat again at the table. He said, "Do you understand what I have done? You call me Master and Lord, and it is right for you to do so. If I, your Lord and Master, wash your feet, then you must wash one another's feet. I have given you an example. Do for one another what I have done for you." Then they sang songs and psalms. The next part of our story is called Judas Leaves. And you can see the disciples there at the dinner table. One of Jesus' disciples was named Judas Iscariot. He came to supper and sat while Jesus washed his feet. He sat while Jesus told the disciples to wash one another's feet. But he was not listening to Jesus. Instead, he was filled with anger and hatred. Jesus knew that one of the disciples, one of those who walked and talked and prayed and ate with him, was going to turn him in to his enemies. It hurt Jesus to know that a close friend would do this, would hand him over for trial. Jesus looked sadly around the table and said, I tell you most solemnly, one of you will betray me." Simon Peter was confused. How could anyone here betray Jesus? He looked around and he saw that one of the disciples was sitting very close to Jesus, with his head resting on Jesus' chest. This disciple nestled against Jesus like a frightened child in a parent's arms. Simon Peter caught the eye of this person and gestured in a way that meant, "Ask. Ask Jesus who will betray him." So the disciple asked, "Who is it, Lord?" "It is the one," Jesus replied, "to whom I give the piece of bread that I shall dip in this dish." He dipped the bread and gave it to Judas Iscariot. Judas took the bread, and Jesus said, "What you are going to do, do quickly." No one at the table understood what was happening between Jesus and Judas. They all knew that Judas took care of their money. So some of them thought Jesus was telling Judas to go out and buy whatever was needed for the Passover feast. Some thought Jesus was telling Judas to go give money to the poor. But Judas knew, and Jesus knew. And as soon as Judas took the bread, he went out. Then Jesus picked up a loaf of bread. He blessed it and gave it to each of his friends, saying, "Take this bread and eat it. This is my body." Then Jesus picked up a cup of wine. He gave thanks and said, "Drink this. It is my blood, which I must give up, so the sins of my people may be forgiven. Do this in remembrance of me." And if you will think about what we do each Sunday in church, we remember this Last Supper with Jesus and his friends, where Jesus said, "This is my body and this is my blood. Do this in the remembrance of me." I hope you all are well. I miss your faces. I miss your stories. I miss the sound of your voices. And we'll talk soon.